Creative Virtual Folklore Festival, organized by the Asian Media and Cultural Studies Network, Deakin University, and Manipal Academy of Higher Education, India. I, Dr. Vikrant Kishore, along with Shubha from Manipal Academy of Higher Education, India, are the festival directors and hosts for this event. Our team includes Shreeraj Gudi from Manipal Academy of Higher Education and Raissa Sofía Torrico from FIDIC, Bolivia. And before I start, I would like to recognize the various traditional lands where we are located and acknowledge the elders past, present, and emerging. I acknowledge the lands, waterways, and airways of the Wurundjeri people and pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people. My colleague Shubha from Manipal Academy of Higher Education will introduce the guests.
Hi, before I begin with the formal introductions, today we gather here for the third session of MAHE Deakin Janapada. This virtual folklore festival is our attempt to celebrate, educate, investigate, and create an awareness regarding the processes of cultural preservation and cultural change. This project sounded overambitious when we began, but I'm sure Vikrant and Shreeraj will agree with me when I say that it has truly been a gratifying experience curating this virtual folk festival. We take pleasure in welcoming all of you to this special day and would like to greet the speakers of the day we have with us. First and foremost, we will have the Vice Chancellor of Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. M.D. Venkatesh, who has a message for us immediately after this. We have with us Dr. Padma Rani, Professor and Director of Manipal Institute of Communication, a constituent unit of Manipal Academy of Higher Education. That's where Shreeraj and I are working. We have with us Dr. P. Venugopal, the Regional Director of Indian Council for Cultural Relations, Bengaluru. I'm delighted to welcome Professor M.L. Samaga, who is with us today. He's a retired professor of English and the principal of a college called Mahatma Gandhi Memorial College. He hails from a family of Yakshagana performers and is also a researcher and experimenter on Yakshagana. Due to one of his experiments on and in Yakshagana, we have the English Yakshagana as a variation, and also the short, brief performances for audiences who cannot spend all night watching this folk form. Yeah, I said it right. These performances happen all night long. He has performed in numerous countries himself and will be presenting this impressive folk form called Yakshagana today. We also have with us Guru Bananje Sanjeeva Suvarna, an outstanding Yakshagana performer, a long-standing teacher and the principal of the Yakshagana Kendra, where the children are taught this folk form along with formal school education, in addition to taking care of their boarding and lodging. Being initiated into the folk form from a very young age, Sanjeeva Suvarna has worked with many illustrious playwrights and troupes in India and abroad. He is an authority on Yakshagana, a rare gem, a committed artist, a down-to-earth, simple, enthusiastic personality, always with a smile on his face. I present before you the pride of Karnataka, Guru Sanjeev Suvarna. We also are delighted to have Professor Sean Redmond, leader of Asian Media and Culture Studies Network from Deakin University. Welcome to you. We are delighted to have Dr. Nick Leonhardt, Associate Professor of Theatre Studies, Joint President of SIB-MAS, SIBMAS, and the editor of the Online Journal of Global Theatre Histories from Munich University in Germany. Welcome to you, Nick. We have with us Dr. Adel Bollard, founder of the modern Tahtib, the stick dance from Egypt. Welcome. We have with us Ms. Ala Makiva, Director of Zorenka Dance Academy from Russia. Hi, Ala, welcome. We also have Ms. Paola Balbi, Artistic Director of the International Storytelling Festivals of Rome, Italy, with us today. We have Mr. Etienne Rogier, Academic Associate ANCM from France, joining us today a little while later. We will first start with a message from the Vice Chancellor of Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. M.D. Venkatesh.
Warm greetings from Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Manipal, an institution of eminence deemed to be university. This program is supported by ICCR Bengaluru, Mythic Society Bengaluru, and Karnataka Chalanachitra Academy and the Consulate General of India, Melbourne, in addition to various organizations such as Association Nationale Culture du Monde, Ganat, France, International Dance Council, UNESCO, Zorenka Dance Association, Pensa, Russia, and La Danza Integradora de Culturas, Bolivia. I am very happy to note that the Manipal Institute of Communication, in collaboration with Asian Media and Cultures Network, Deakin University, is organizing a virtual celebration of folk expressions and intangible cultural heritage films called MAHE Deakin JANAPADA. The rich folk forms of Karnataka, like the Royal Tiger Dance, Hulivesha, Kamsale Nritya, Yakshagana, and Dollu Kunita, are being represented during the 4 days of the festival from India. As an academic output to the event, an issue of global media journal, Indian edition, will be dedicated to folklore research. Also, an e-book with graphic representation of the performances and event write-up will be published. I compliment the festival directors, Dr. Shubha H.S, Associate Professor and the Head, Department of Media Studies, Manipal Institute of Communication, Mr. Shreeraj Gudi, Assistant Professor, Senior Scale, Manipal Institute of Communication, and Dr. Vikrant Kishore, Deakin University, for recognizing the need for and conceptualizing this unique festival, bringing together folk performers in the digital space and showcasing the rich folk forms of Karnataka. I wish the participants and the organizers of this MAHE Deakin Janapada event all the very best. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
That was very kind of the Vice Chancellor, and he couldn't join us physically, but virtually we are meeting, so video. I'll just play our introductory video by the time I get to the other video, and this is a video which we have created with partnership of Association Nationale Cultures du Monde, which has been working on protection of intangible cultural heritage. And this is a video which in a way, portrays what we are trying to do. So I'll just play this video.
Le patrimoine immatériel, c'est un élément de la culture, et c'est un patrimoine vivant. Le patrimoine immatériel, c'est un élément de la culture qui est décidé par ceux qui y participent. C'est-à-dire que contrairement, on va dire, au patrimoine mondial, ce n'est pas les experts qui décident de la richesse universelle d'un bien, mais c'est un patrimoine vivant. Pour qu'il soit parfaitement vivant, il faut qu'il soit transmis. On pourrait dire que ce sont des contes, ce sont des jeux, ce sont toutes sortes de représentations, ce sont les langues, ce sont les expressions orales, c'est la musique, c'est les savoir-faire et c'est un certain nombre de connaissances qui nous sont propres à l'humanité et qui contribuent à la créativité et à la diversité culturelle de cette même humanité. On dira que c'est cette dimension vivante. C'est aussi une sorte de résistance qui est proposée face à une globalisation du monde. Ce patrimoine, il est vivant parce que les communautés l'ont décidé, ils se l'approprient, ça crée un sentiment d'identité fort. Et puis surtout, il y a une profondeur historique, c'est ancré dans la tradition, mais c'est surtout recréé en permanence.
And we are off to our start, and I would like to invite Associate Professor Nick Leonhardt, who is our keynote speaker today. Nick is an Associate Professor of Theatre Studies. Since October 2016, she is a Senior Researcher and Associate Director of the ERC, European Research Council project, Developing Theatre at LMU Munich, as well as Director of the Center for Global Theatre History. Together with visual artist Reza Nasrullahi, she is running the global art and charity project 1001 Soul. Her third monograph, Theatre über Ozean, a study on transatlanticality, operating culture entrepreneurs and agents at the turn of 20th century, came out in 2018. The book has recently been translated and will be soon published under the title Theatres Across Oceans with Palgrave Macmillan. Welcome, Nick, and over to you. You need to
Yes, I'm with you myself. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. By the way, the book has been published now. It's out now. I will refer to it very, very briefly in my presentation, and I prepared a few slides, and I will immediately start in order not to take too much time. All right. My keynote address, and I'm very privileged, and I feel honored to be invited to give this address today, is titled "Change as a Constant: A Festival in Hybrid Times and Spaces." And as you can see, it's more a general approach to what a virtual festival like this one here could be, and where the changes are, and so on. So I try to put some thoughts together. I'm very pleased to be invited, as I said, to say a few words today in the context of this first edition of the JANAPADA Virtual International Folklore Festival. I'm Nick. I'm a theatre and arts scholar with a special interest in global exchange, and I'm also a writer and a curator. We met at the inaugural day of this 4-day festival 2 weeks ago. This kickoff was a very touching one. Cultural workers and researchers from 12 countries met here on the screen in different time zones, as they do today, to open the festival. A virtual festival that still sounds a bit peculiar and like a contradiction in itself. And yet, plagued by a pandemic for almost 2 years now, we are by now quite well accustomed to the shift of everyday and cultural life into the digital sphere. On an anthropological level, I must be honest, I'm amazed at how quickly this trial and error has taken place, how quickly we got accustomed to that. And on the one hand, and on the other hand, we still see and experience daily how much the immediate exchange is missing. The world is a different place today than it was in 2019, the year I first attended the Festival des Cultures du Monde in Ghana, and the last time it took place. Today, I would like to talk a little bit about the facets of change that cultural life and the work of academia are undergoing. This change has been radically demonstrated by the so-called global pandemic, at a speed and with an intensity that we only know from wars. In my most recent book that Vikrant mentioned before, Theatre Across Oceans, I looked at agencies that organize transatlantic traffic between cultural practitioners and institutions. It is a study on the backstage areas of theatre understood as business at the turn of the 20th century. In the book, I don't leave out the First World War. Why? Because I was interested in what happened to the global trade of art and theatre when the World War broke out. You can imagine what happened. Everything collapsed. Chaos broke out. Contracts had to be broken. Tours had to be cancelled. Artists could no longer travel. Theatres had to look for alternatives or were forced to close. Even if the cause is of a different nature, the consequences are not so dissimilar to those of the present pandemic. But what does this mean for a festival? Is a virtual festival only a temporary alternative? Will there soon be festivals again as we have known them so far? We are all in a metamorphosis that does not yet know a clear transformation goal. That's scary, but it's also super exciting and challenging. We're in the middle of it, and events like this festival motivate us to think about change. I don't know if this ever happened before and in what way, that one reflects on change, while it is happening. We are all cultural practitioners in the broadest sense. Our mission and passion are to preserve, live, and transmit culture. Change is also reflected in what we want to preserve. That is our cultural assets, the tangible and intangible cultural heritage to which the performances and rituals presented at this festival belong. If change is a constant, then, positively turned, a new orientation is possible that does not make the tried and tested obsolete, and additionally allows for modifications. For example, in the form, the way, the intensity, and frequency with which we do something. If change is a constant, it also means that it is something very natural, and thus something that we humans have always been able to cope with. Change is always part of the present. What do we do with it now? What a festival is can only ever be grasped against the respective temporal or historical background. But if you look at the structural logic that festivals follow, the common denominator is that they take place in a specific place, location, or region, and that this takes place within a time frame of several days or weeks in a periodic rhythm of, let's say, 1, 2, 3, or 4 years. And during this time, troops and visitors from different parts of the world come together in one place for experiencing a variety of performances. It is one of the peculiarities of a festival that the place and time of the festival produce their own quality, dynamics, intensity, and also a very unique idea and experience of space and time during the duration of the event. In Ghana 2019, for example, we stayed with locals who became our family. The festival expanded from the festival site with its tents into the small town, which itself became the setting for the performances of folklore groups from all over the world. When the festival was over and we got back home, we had the feeling of returning from a little trip around the world, but also of leaving a secondary world that had been constituted in the density of the festival. There's no denying that the common denominators of previous festivals are also in a state of flux. A redefinition might be recommended when it comes to virtual festivals. A festival takes place means it happens in a place. With the virtual festival, we can no longer speak of a fixed, localizable space. The stage of the festival is a decentralized one, such as Zoom or another video conference platform. The performances of the festival, for the most part, take place where they originate and come live or mediatized across our screens. We viewers and participants are no longer dependent on traveling either. Instead, we stay where we are to attend the festival. During the festival, we act in shared festival time. As long as the Zoom link works, as long as we are online, we are participating in the festival. The place is one thing, the time is another. Here it becomes even more complex, because for a festival of world cultures, we all join in from our respective time zones to witness the peculiar temporality of the festival. The very heterogeneous audience time affects, more than usual, the individual reception of the festival. It makes a difference whether I join in at 3 a.m., like the Famille Blanche group from Canada at the festival's opening 2 weeks ago, at 7 p.m., like my colleagues in Australia, or early in the morning at 9 a.m., like my European neighbors. The time experienced is also interesting. If I just said that the festival is usually multi-day, I implied that the festival events are spread out over several days. It is a definite interruption of everyday life, a particular festival time, if you will. The JANAPADA Virtual Festival, like other virtual festivals, is set up over several days of interruption. On 4 Saturdays, the festival continues. Before, after, and in between, however, we go back to our everyday lives. We interrupt the festival with our everyday lives, not vice versa. Place and time are important constituents of festivals, but not the only ones, because, of course, the content of the festival also matters. There's a slide missing, that's okay. The Festival des Cultures du Monde, as well as the JANAPADA Festival, are dedicated to folklore culture, presentation, preservation, and mediation of cultural diversity and cultural heritage in the world are central parameters and objectives. The international list of UNESCO lists 500 forms of intangible cultural heritage. The website states about the Intangible Cultural Heritage Convention the following. The convention promotes the safeguarding of knowledge and skills necessary for traditional craftsmanship and cultural practices transmitted from generation to generation, such as oral traditions, performing arts, social practices, rituals and festive events, and knowledge and practices concerning nature and the universe. Be it dance, theater, music, festivals, handicrafts, or customs, intangible cultural heritage is alive and is supported by human knowledge and skills. The word heritage includes passing on, preserving, and also the responsibility of those who inherit it, and this is us. If festivals like this one take these aspects into account, it also means that they can do so within the framework of the given possibilities and conditions. In an interview with the curator of Transmediale 2021, that this is a festival of art and digital culture in Berlin, the curator Nora Omochu recently formulated her curatorial guideline for the festival as follows. She says, "We decelerate the festival and let the audience participate in different ways while considering issues like inequality, climate, and sustainability. In my opinion, the pandemic has shown that we can no longer ignore these things. It has given us the reason to rethink the circumstances in general." And the attitude of the two female curators of the upcoming Theatre of the World Festival of the International Theatre Institute ITI for 2023 sounded similar when they presented the outline of the international event last Saturday. As they pointed out, in the face of the current global situation, they work with the adversities and obstacles of the global crisis, but also with the reflection that the month of standstill and reorientation have meant in the cultural sector. They take their function as curators literally. The Latin curare means to care for, to nurture, and also keep in mind the care, the nurturing, the looking after, not only of art, but also of the artists and visitors themselves. In connection with this, they emphasize, as does the curator of the Transmediale, the importance of keeping an eye on sustainability and climate. Virtual meeting environments will never be able to replace social interaction, a shared physical presence, a handshake, or a hug. And yet there are certainly cost-saving alternatives that can sustain academic and cultural operations. It is likely that they will continue to exist even after cultural and educational institutions will reopen after the pandemic, not only because teachers, researchers, and students have become accustomed to them, but also because they have recently opened up new forms of participation that can certainly have an enriching effect on professional discourse and cultural practices. This had and still has advantages: more participation, greater reach, lower costs, not to mention the ecological footprint. For some time now, the many conference trips in the academia, for example, had become a climate and university policy issue. A rethink was urgently recommended. And the same applies to large cultural events and festivals. Festivals also involve interventions in urban or rural spaces with indispensable journeys by performers and visitors. I consider sustainability to be an essential responsibility that we also have as scholars and cultural workers. This does not mean that I want to make a plea for the abolition of real encounters. Oh no, not at all. It's no coincidence that my memory of the 2019 Ghana Festival is so vivid. It was blisteringly hot, then raining cats and dogs. We hardly had time to eat because there was always something going on. We lived for days in an olfactory and linguistic cocktail and were continuously in exchange with locals, cultural workers, and scholars from all over the world, eating, laughing, drinking, and dancing together, while drums or music were always sounding somewhere in the background. And I'm just having goosebumps while going through this memory. I've never experienced this quality in a Zoom before, I must confess. I cannot deny that. And yet I'm willing to preserve these experiences in their quality, but reduce them in their quantity, simply for contributing to preserve, protect, and present cultural goods. And this brings me to a final point I like to make here, that of mediation. As cultural workers, as well as teachers and scholars, mediation is a major goal of our work or passion. The festival allows the presentation of cultural products, be they immaterial or material goods. Mediation often does not take place in a direct way, but in extra spaces such as booklets or conferences, summer schools or workshops that accompany the festival. A virtual festival can link performances and their academic, discursive, accompanying mediation more directly. And it can bring world cultures closer to the people of the world in an economically and ecologically more friendly way, perhaps even to more people than before, because digital accessibility is increasing, because the multilingualism of the festival community is more obvious and easier to realize digitally, because the parameters of space and time of the festival are changing and the cultural performances are thus bringing a larger audience with them. We at home can now finally be part of it as a family. Before, festival visits and conference trips were always part of my job that I would do on my own. Now they are more natural in the private sphere. Change is a constant, also in the transmission of cultural heritage, which gains in value as the world is changing. I'd like to thank you for your kind attention.
That was amazing. Yeah, you just covered so many things, and it just came in front of me about all the work that we have been doing in last 3 weeks and one more week to go, and before that in organizing. And you have summarized that so beautifully of all the work that we have done. And I'm so thankful to you that it's something that it's not that we have just gathered people just to talk about things, but it is meaningful gathering. It is about, and such an amazing kind of a keynote that you presented today. And as the Vice Chancellor mentioned, that we want to take out a special journal, which Shubha will talk more about it. And definitely this is going to be a special feature of our journal. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll take some Q&A later on. So over to you, Shubha.
Thank you, Vikrant. And honestly, Nick, that was really, really amazing. You put it so beautifully when you said change is constant and change is part of the past and the future and the present. I mean, that just said so much. Thank you so much. We now move to our next speaker, Dr. Adel Bollard, founder of Modern Tahtib from Egypt. Adel Paul Bollard is a French-Egyptian executive coach with a PhD in physics. He has more than 50 years of martial art practice. He initiated and led, on behalf of Egypt, the process to register Tahtib, the stick game, the rural version of pluri-millenarist martial art, on the UNESCO's representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The inscription was approved at the UNESCO Assembly in Addis Ababa in November 2016. With his wealth of experience as a state-certified martial art instructor, and after 10 years of investigation in Upper Egypt, he created and codified the modern Tahtib, a sporting version of the traditional art of Egyptian stick fighting. His recent book addresses the Olympics challenge and offers a teaching track for free combat. It is available in 4 languages, in English, Spanish, Arabic, and French. Over to you, Adel Bollard.
Yes, thank you very much for this very nice and comprehensive introduction. Vikrant, we had a video to introduce the topic, and then we'll have some few words, and if possible, answering to questions. Is that okay, Vikrant?
Yes, that's fine. For your segment, we have created that 10 minutes thing for 4 minutes of your video, and then 6 minutes you'll talk, and next 5 minutes we'll just open for Q&A for you.
So thank you very much, and hello to everybody. I don't say good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's a hello to everybody. Thank you.
Good morning. Today I have the pleasure to set the scene and the track in perspective of a new sport at the Olympic Games in 2032. It concerns an Egyptian warrior discipline engraved 5,000 years ago on Sahure Pyramid track. The rural version of this martial art was filed at UNESCO in 2016 as Tahtib stick game. During 4 years, I managed the filing, material assembling, the funding, and the process. In parallel, I developed the sport version, Modern Tahtib. Now we aim at the Olympic Games 2032. And there is no doubt that Olympics would take place in Africa by 2032, 2036. The probability is high enough for Egypt versus Morocco and South Africa. In such a case, there is no other sport more representative of Egypt than the Egyptian battle staff. modern tahtib. Olympics or not, the 5,000 years enriched benefits of modern tahtib are available from now.
To get into the fighting spirit and to become combative, but also to treat it as a game.
It's all a group and it's not individually, and it also develops your spirits.
In summary, modern tahtib brings sport architecture, engagement rules, teaching material available in English, French and Arabic, the availability to all people above 7 years old, male and female. The sport shoots with the typical three-ended Egyptian belt, also team leader instructor levels and progression track. Tournament rules and various cups for individuals and teams. Then you have codified Just Cup, you have the Forms Cup, you have the Combat 360 Degrees Cup, and you have the Free Justin Cup. In perspective of the Olympics, we proceed through local hubs. The detailed plan exists. 40 countries on 3 continents are required, in Europe and all Americas. So now we are looking for regional and local center leaders, as there are still 35 countries to address. You like the idea? So how to launch it in your country? You need to identify a team leader with development skills and a core group motivated by the challenge. Remote training and coaching are already available and at work, with remote interactive sessions with the leader. The YouTube channel is organized for teaching and practice. The overall process includes remote and on-site sessions coached by Modern Tahtib international instructors. With such local teams in place, the regional and international tournaments are delivered, as well as shows and gatherings for the shared pleasure of combat and rhythm. Ready to start? Your next step would be then to call me by messenger or by mail. I would be so glad to work with you and to organize with you the right plan for your local and regional teams, and also taking in consideration your local constraints.
All right, thanks, Adele. So you can take over now. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you, Vikrant. It's okay now? The sound is back, huh?
Yes, all good.
Yeah, I hope this was enough clear to see how my ambition of transmission, this is an ambition of how to transmit it around the world, to also encourage in Egypt a practice. Otherwise, with the vanishing rural societies, it would disappear. But also, more importantly, is really to spread it around the world, in Egypt and around the world, for male and female, so people take advantage of its benefits as a practice and not as a show. Okay, I am very concerned by the folklore and all these kind of things of dancing to become a kind of performance as a show. My ambition here is to get people to practice it so they take advantage of the benefits. I wanted to highlight 2 points here. First, the transmission method, and the second one is about the refereeing method. Both are linked to the traditional practice and the 5,000 years. The transmission method is based on forms. In all culture, in Japan, the forms are called kata. In Korea, called pomsi. You know, in China, for the wushu, it's tauru. In India, maybe it's wrong, but tell me, in India, Vikrant, it's Yudan, that's right? Yudhan. No?
I don't have a clear understanding.
Yudhan, Y-U-D-H-A-N, Yudhan is kind of forms used for martial arts, no? Okay.
There are a couple of different ones, yeah.
Different ones.
In Karnataka, there is one art form called as Donne Varsi of the same kind, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I believe most people know the Japanese word kata, right? Yeah, okay. So in Egypt, it's called tashkila. Tashkila is a form. Now in the modern tahtib, the transmission method is mainly based on the forms and the 5 modes of execution each form. The 5 modes are building up or adding constraints, okay, with music, with partnering, with rhythm, and with the circle. It's a boundary with a circle. So we are adding up constraints to develop the feeling of free fighting, and free fighting also in engagement and respect each other. So this is the core of the transmission method, because the rural or traditional transmission is no more applicable today. So we had to find a method respecting the values of this practice, and the method is the one here, which we have 13 forms in modern tahtib with the 5 execution modes which build up. The last one, the last fifth mode is played in a circle with a person with 2 opponents. Okay, by this method we go back to the warrior conditions 5,000 years ago, when he was surrounded in the battlefield against more than one enemy. So he had to fight against more than one. He couldn't say, hey, I'm going to address you one by one, as it is shown today, for instance, but it is with 2 or 3 or more people. So this is the 5th mode, just to give you an idea of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mode for executing forms. And obviously the player here is using the techniques which are given in a given form. The second point I wanted to comment here is about the refereeing method. In traditional tahdib, it is the elder person present in the audience, in the gathering, okay, who is in charge of refereeing. I mean, stopping or moderating a fight between between 2 persons playing the game here. And he used the word so. So is a very old Egyptian word coming from the pharaonic language. So means miss your turn or pass your stick to somebody else. And the elder master here in presence, he monitor and avoid people to enter in a violence or aggressiveness in terms of not respecting. So this is the traditional method. Today in modern tahtib, we hand this over to the audience through the smartphones with an application which allows them to rate, not the people, they rate the quality of a juice in the sense of the quality of the flow, the harmony, the speed, the mindset, the spirit. Also, in a summary, they rate the respectful engagement, the real respectful engagement in the juice. So at the end, you have 2 players playing the best juice, getting the gold medal, and the 2 others, coming in second, getting the silver medal. So one day you would see an Israeli playing against a Turkish or an Egyptian or a Moroccan, okay, winning and having the gold medal. So we could have two players from 2 different countries because they would have delivered the best rated juice by the audience to get the gold medal. So when we're discussing this, we're bringing the so traditional method to modernity and giving the role to the audience in a such as a guard of the quality mindset, sportive mindset in the assembling, in the gathering. So these were the 2 points I wanted to highlight here: is the transmission method and the refereeing method. And so I would very much appreciate if you have questions, because as most of us were now confronting the Corona ban for travel and so. Anyway, I will travel to Egypt, also to Sudan soon, not soon, at the end of this month, to deliver training, and Italy also. I'll be in February, and I hope I could travel to go to Buenos Aires on March and April to stay there 4 weeks, 5 weeks to train trainers there, so they will spread it in South America, etc. So any question, I would be happy to answer to these questions. Even if it is a challenging question, I would be happy to answer it.
Yep. So any questions? And as you asked from India, I think there is a very interesting stick game called Lathi Khel. It's a very common thing, and it happens in different kind of local versions from state to state. And it's very popular as well. So probably, yeah, I'll connect you with some of the local trainers from India who should be interested. Part of this, yeah.
So nobody is surprised to see a traditional practice to become a sport and moving to Olympic Games. This is not a surprise. Yes, Ala, you wanted to say something? Okay.
So I wish you that your mission, your goal will come true someday.
Thank you. You know, I am 70 years old. Maybe if it happens to happen in the Olympic Games, I would be 82, 84, something like that. I don't believe at that time I'll be very happy. Happiness is now in the track, today, tomorrow, next week, next month, etc. In the track, moving, meeting, gathering people, meeting with people, training people, transmitting the spirit to people around the world, not only in Egypt, but around the world. This is for me, satisfaction and happiness is there, and not achieving really the Olympic Games at the end. The objective is there also, obviously, to get this. Okay, Nick, you want to thank you. Nick, you wanted to add something or to say a comment? No. Any question?
No, thank you very much. No questions so far, but I'm just impressed about the longue durée of this practice, as you described it, and also about your mission. I'm always on the side of taking risk, and it's a very interesting and very inspiring endeavor, definitely. So
okay,
I stick with Ala, saying, well, it's impressive, and why not?
Thank you very much, Nick. I wanted just to take advantage of your presence here. I have a difficulty to develop in Germany and Baltics, okay? I will be in Russia in June. The Russians are okay to consider the Russian-speaking countries, but not those belonging to European Union. You see, when we go in this roadmap, I am facing also political and geopolitical obstacles. So they will take the Russia, Ukraine, whatever, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, the surrounding countries speaking Russian. So I'm looking for a base, and I'm thinking about Germany to develop also for Poland, for Denmark, Austria, okay? Because when I go in one place like that, I need to rely on this given place to take in charge the surrounding countries. So Germany could be the place for, again, this Austria, Czech, Poland, Denmark, for instance. So if you have any entry point, I would be very glad to go. So it is the same for Bogota. I would be in Bogota for Central America. As said here in the video, North America now in Canada is taking in charge US, Canada, Mexico, Trinidad. But Central Europe is an issue for me with Germany in the middle. Okay.
Well, my recommendation would be that you get in touch with the people from the ITI in Germany, in Berlin, that I also refer to. They're very open-minded, and they have a very, very beautiful and very rich center for all sorts of performing arts.
I don't know how I could get these references, maybe through Vikrant or directly.
I will leave the link in the chat for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Everyone.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're much welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Adele. It was really good to have you here and to hear about your, whole project. You'll find lots of collaborators in India for sure, because there are so many variations of the stick dance form and stick combat martial arts. Every state, so you'll have at least 20 different forms of this particular thing. So. And everybody I can see from India are, nodding and, saying, yes, that is true. So definitely. And please feel free to connect with Adele and let him know what is in your area, and you can talk about it later on as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll now move on to our next speaker, and she is Alla Makieva from Russia. Alla is the director of Zorenka. Alla learned and practiced folk art culture since she was a child. Currently, she is undertaking master's degree of folk art at Saratov State University. Alla heads the well-known cultural group Zorenka as its director. The choreographic ensemble Zorenka is a creative team that has its own unique style of dance and has been the hallmark of the Penza region of Russia for more than 40 years. The repertoire of the ensemble Zorenka includes about 100 unique authors' compositions. The performances of the ensemble Zorenka are of great educational importance. It contributes to the popularization of the traditional culture of the Penza region, as well as strengthening the cultural ties and friendship between peoples in different countries. So over to you, Alla, and she's talking about Zorenka's cultural performances. So let me know when you want the video to be played.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I would like to say some words about my dancing company. The dancing company Zorenka is from Penza, Russia, and it is working in the genre of folk dance. As Vika have already said, our team has its own unique style and manner of dance. The company Zorenka, the emblem of the company Zorenka is the sunrise, because the Russian word Zorenka means the sunrise. The company contributes to the richness of cultural life of Penza region, Russia. Its artistic activities are meant to meet aesthetic and spiritual needs of the people in Russia and Penza in Penza region. The company carefully keeps and develops the genre of folk choreography, creates new dances and music tunes. Zorenka invites famous people of art and organizes workshops for choreography teachers and dancers in the region, and it is actively involved into public awareness and charity activities. Nowadays, Zorenka is 47 years old, and the repertoire of our ensemble includes a great number of unique compositions. The performances of dancing group are of great educational importance. They contribute to the popularization of traditional culture, as well as strengthening of cultural ties and friendship between people in different countries. So our mission is first adaptation of folk genre to the nowadays life, and then development of traditional folk art and preservation of traditional Russian costumes and music. And at last, realization of live performances in the Penza region, other regions of Russia and abroad. Zorenka visited many countries in the world: Ukraine, Belarus, Spain, Germany, France, Poland, Hungary, and some others. And everywhere we introduced Russian folk culture. Our dancing composition reproduced the traditional national motifs and tenets of Russian folk dance and complement them to the elegance of classical movements. Now, let's watch the video. The dance which you will see is called Zavalenka, and it is based on an old Russian game. It's a game with a small ring, and the game host gives a ring to someone secretly. So many boys and girls play the game, and so the game host put the ring into between his hands, and he gives a ring to one person secretly, and the other people should find that person and not let him go in the center of the circle. So let's watch the video. is not a pure game, just a dance based on the game. And dancing is closely connected with music, and there is no dance without music. In our productions, we use folk music and works of Russian composers. The musicians of our orchestra use Russian old instruments such as bayan, balalaika, domra, various pipes, and these are native Russian instruments, and they help to convey the character of the dance, and the music corresponds to the nature of the movement, traditional color, its tempo, rhythm, and style. The costumes are of great importance in Russian folk dance too. The main female costume of dancing is usually a sundress, a blouse, and a kokoshnik. Kokoshnik is a type of headdress. I hope some of you know how does it look like. So I can see the girl. Can you see it? So the head dress is called kokoshnik. And the costumes are usually decorated with colorful ribbons and tapes. And the male dancing costume is usually a shirt made of satin or silk and trousers. And the shirt are also decorated with Russian ornaments. Now I offer to watch one more dance. It is called matryoshka. I hope some of you know this old Russian toy. So I have a matryoshka here. So when from a big mother toy appears many smaller matryoshkas. So here they are. And this dance, which you will see now, is called matryoshka. Please, Vic, play the video.
Matri, matri, matri,
Okay, so thank you, Vic. Every year our group creates premiere productions and performances that reveals the beauty and the energy of Russian folk culture and dancing. And the concert programs of dancing company Zorinka is a bright collection of dance art. As I have already said, the dance company Zorinka is working in the genre of folk dance based on old traditions, celebrations, old games and melodies. And we try to save and develop the local folk traditions and their transmission to the modern younger generation. Our shows engage modern technologies, which make the traditional folk art appealing not only to the older people, but also to the young ones. And we think that it is very important. Almost all our dances introduce the culture of people, geography, and historical milestones. And so the high skill of performers and the uniqueness of the created work make it possible to collect full concert halls at various stages of the city. So, and everybody, every person, every dancer loves to dance. We all do it with all our heart. And I hope we liked some of our dancing. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. That's all what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thanks, Ella. And if anyone has any question, then please ask. I had the pleasure of working with Ella's group Zorenka in 2013, and I made a short documentary on the group, and I saw them closely. I traveled with them for almost a week, and it was really great to see the dancers and the choreographers and the musicians all working together. And since then, we have been constantly in touch. So I know the kind of work that goes into their particular dance form. Any questions, or over to you, Shubha? Oh, Nick has a question.
I really enjoyed the Matryoshka dance. It was fun to watch because a Matryoshka, like a wooden Matryoshka, was on my wish list for Christmas, and my spouse was nice enough to give it to me before. So we occasionally we play with the little dolls. Like my little son, he likes that too. And in the context of this little gift that now lives on my shelf at home, I did some research on Matryoshka and the origin of the Matryoshka, and came across the information that the first Matryoshka was presented at the World Fair, the World Exhibition in Paris, 1900. Which was fascinating, and since then everyone wanted to have a Matryoshka, it seemed. So I'm as always interested in the transcultural facets of items like that. And then I have two questions basically. One was that I also read in my little research that there's also something Japanese in the dolls, and I was wondering if that plays a role in the dance. And the other question is, since when you have a Matryoshka dance, since the dolls were invented in the late 19th century, as far as my research went. So that's two questions, and thanks a lot.
I think that such toy appeared, maybe it appeared in Japan and in Russia simultaneously at the same time, many centuries ago. I'm not sure when it appeared earlier. But in Russia, many generations played this toy, and nowadays my daughter plays it too. I think in different countries, matryoshkas have different appearance. Maybe in Russia it is a girl or a woman. In China, a man can be shown on the face. For example, I have matryoshka with such matryoshka. I'm sorry. So it's an old man. So I think every country has its own traditions, and in every country we can see matryoshka in different ways, in different faces. We can see different faces on it. And as for the second question, would you repeat it? Oh, I'm sorry, switch on the sound.
Since when do you have a dance that is referring to Matryoshka, was the second question.
Yes, I think this game, or this not game, but a toy, this toy inspired us to make such a dance. because it is bright, because we have many girls dancing from tall to the smallest one. I think, why not? Yes. So?
Yeah, so Ella, is this dance, the Matryoshka, is it a kind of a folk dance form, or is it just an ensemble piece of your group, or is it just done across Russia?
No, it's our unique dance. We made it. And in this dance are dancing grown-up girls and small girls, because our ensemble has its school dancing school, and little girls started to dance, and we decided to make a dance with little girls, and you saw that they take part in this dance. I think that in other regions, in other cities, you can meet dances like this, but this dance is unique. It's our Zorinka's own dance. It's our own dance.
Yeah, I know that your group creates lots of these kind of mix of folk and your own interpretation of dance. That's why.
Yes, it's not a pure folk dance. It's an interpretation, a mixture of folk dance and classical movements and stage variant.
Great. Thanks, Ella. Thanks a lot. And if there are any more questions, we'll take it later on. So over to you, Shubha.
Thank you, Vikrant. We now move to the performance from India. Yakshagana is the name of the performance that we are presenting today. It's a traditional theatre that originated in the coastal regions of Karnataka, where we are based. It's a spectacular combination of dance, music, dialogue, costumes, makeup, stage techniques with a unique style and form. It's typically performed from dusk to dawn. To tell us more about it, we have Professor M.L. Samaga and Guru Bananje Sanjeev Suvarna. Over to you.
Namaste. Am I audible to everybody?
There's an echo in your voice, sir.
Okay, I will keep some distance.
Yeah.
I think that may solve the problem.
Yeah.
Already Dr. Shubha has told us a few things about Yakshagana. Now, this is a unique art form, a total theater prevalent in coastal Karnataka. Karnataka is a state in India. Yakshagana, etymologically, if you look at the name Yakshagana, there are two aspects. One is, it means the song of the Yakshas. Otherwise, it's a style of music of certain community. That is roughly what it means. So that is one of the meanings of Yakshagana. Now, secondly, Yakshagana refers to a type of musical composition. That is a musical composition, narrative poetry having certain metrical features. But today, when you say Yakshagana, it represents a theater. So from the style of music to the composition, a kind of composition, today it means a form of theater. Now, the special features of this Yakshagana theater is it's a combination of dance and drama. Yakshagana has colorful costumes. Yakshagana has dance. Yakshagana has extempore dialogues. That is a part of the drama. One of the chief attractions of Yakshagana is its costumes. So in the Natya Shastra, they talk about, Natya Shastra is an important text on dramaturgy in India written by Bharata Muni, sage Bharata. He talks about 4 types of abhinaya, that is reaching the audience through your actions, acting. And those 4 forms of abhinaya are Angika. Angika means your body language, gestures, movements, dance. Then aharya. Aharya is a costume, dress. And then you have the vachika. Vachika is through language, you express your feelings, your thoughts, your ideas, and thus give the people the story of the performance. So you have Angika, that is a dance of the body, and you have Vachika, you have Aharya, and finally, when you depict the characters in the performance, you feel the emotions, that is Satvika. So 4 types of Abhinaya are properly in a unique way blend in Yakshagana theatre. It has a history of more than 600 years. Formerly, like many of the art forms, Yakshagana is also of folk origin. But in its evolution, it has acquired almost classical perfection. So today, the uniqueness of Yakshagana theatre is, it is a combination of folk liberty and also classical discipline. Now, let me tell you, one of the chief attractions of Yakshagana is its costumes, highly colorful costumes, and also music. Now, just listen to one aspect of Yakshagana music, especially percussion instruments music. Let me say a few words about the performance of theatre Yakshagana. It is a ritualistic theatre, and it's a form of worship to God. And in the temples, formerly they used to perform the stories taken from Indian Puranas, Indian mythology. The actors put on the characters, and these characters dance when the musicians sing the song to the accompaniment of musical instruments. Main 2 instruments are, one is what you call vertical percussion instrument, which is called chande. The other is the horizontal instrument called maddale or mridanga. When the Bhagavat on the stage sings the song, the characters dance. After the song is over, they stop the dance, and as characters, for example, Rama, Krishna, Wali, different characters in the story, they talk. And this dialogue part of the performance is not learnt by heart. It is extempore. Then and there, depending upon the ability, they talk and continue the story. It is not just narrating the story, it is actually interpreting the story, making it relevant to the present contemporary time. You see a few costume varieties of Yakshagana theatre. This is a man, young man, like a lady. This is another variety of costume in northern style of Yakshagana. This is Bear King or Jambava in the Ramayana story. This is a demon, Rakshasa character. And this is Hanuman, God Hanuman in Yakshagana style. And you have Garuda in the middle and Rama and Lakshmana on 2 sides. Now what I want you to note is the costume varieties of Yakshagana. This is Hunter and this is Lord Maharudra, Maheshwar. And here is Parashurama in the Mahabharata character. You have seen now, I don't know whether it was very clear on your screen, the costume varieties of Yakshagana of northern style. Now, similarly, there are other costume varieties in the southern style of Yakshagana. What do I mean by southern style of Yakshagana and northern style of Yakshagana? The story is saying, the theatrical form, structurally it is saying, but the style of dancing is different, the style of singing is different, and the costume varieties are also different. As I said, Yakshagana has a ritual background. It is in a way extension of temple activities. The main purpose of this Yakshagana theater is to give the moral messages to the audience, common people. I mean, ordinary people, they are not well educated, and even the performers are also not highly educated till recently. In the recent times, even educated people have got into Yakshagana and they also act. And when they are more well-read, when they can think better, they can give better interpretations of the stories. And in the whole night performance, the first part, that is nearly 1 or 2 hours, nearly 2 hours, it is highly adjustable. You see the Purvaranga, the prologue part, in which you have invocatory dances, invocatory songs. And after that, the main story begins. That is how the whole performance is divided. Then, you know, I will show you another video clipping. It's from the actual performance in a stage. You just watch a character in the Mahabharata called Kichaka is entering. Look at the headgear, the kirita, costumes, and the dance. The musicians at the background. This is the extemporary speech now. Within the framework of the main story, they know what they have to say, but according to their intellectual ability, they talk here. This is the drama part of Yakshagana. People enjoy what they are saying in Kannada language, the local language. Look at their actions or abhinaya. They exit now.
Samaga, sorry, you've got 2 more minutes to wrap up. Professor Samaga.
Yakshagana is a very popular theater, and these days, you know, youngsters, more educated people also are getting trained in Yakshagana. And in Udupi, we have a Yakshagana center, training center, where there is Guru Sanjeeva Suvarna. I will call Sanjeeva Suvarna and he will say a few words. Of course, he will speak in Kannada or Tulu language and I will translate it, and how it is continued over the generations and taught to the younger school children now. Sanjeeva.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಕೇಳ್ತದಾ?
ಸಂಜೀವ ಮಾತಾಡಿ. ಈಗ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಗುರುಕುಲದಲ್ಲಿ
ಅಲ್ಲ ಟೈಮ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ನಾವು ನೀವು ಸಂಭಾಷಣೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಪ್ರಯೋಜನ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ
ಹೇಳಿಕೊಡ್ತೀರಿ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ, ಶಾಲೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ?
ಈಗ ನಾವು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಪ್ರಯೋಜನ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಅವರಿಗೆ ಬೇಕೇನು ಅದನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿ ನಾವು.
ಅಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಬೇಕಾದ ಕೇಳುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಈಗ ಅವರು ಹೇಳುದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿಕೊಡ್ತೀರಿ ನೀವು ಅಂತ ಕೇಳುದು. ಈಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ
ನಾವು ಗುರುಕುಲ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿಕೊಡ್ತೇವೆ. ಗುರುಕುಲ ಪದ್ಧತಿಯ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ 5 ಗಂಟೆಯಿಂದ ರಾತ್ರಿವರೆಗೆ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ತಾಳಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಡಾನ್ಸಿನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಅಭಿನಯದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ, ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಶಿಷ್ಯ ಹೇಗಿರ್ಬೇಕೆಂಬುದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣ ಕೊಡ್ತೇವೆ.
ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಲ್ಲ?
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್. He is Bannanja Sanjeeva Suvarna, the foremost guru in the field of Yakshagana, and for more than 30 years he has been teaching Yakshagana to the young boys. In the Gurukula system, which is the typical of Indian education system, you know, the children stay in that building, Yakshagana Kendra, and it's a residential school. They get up in the morning at 5 o'clock and they get trained in Yakshagana. It's a whole day activity. Till evening, they are taught Yakshagana. Nearly for 2 or 3 years, they have to learn Yakshagana. But these days, you know, of modern times, they need also the modern education. That is why these days, you know, after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, they go to regular school and they come back to the Yakshagana Kendra training center in the evening because they stay there only. Again, learn Yakshagana. This way, Yakshagana is continued. So Yakshagana is even now a highly popular and living theater because it has a contemporary relevance too. Educated young people get into Yakshagana because it has a kind of folk liberty. By folk liberty, I mean in dance and in music, it is systematized. You can't dance any way that you like. But when you give interpretation to the story that you are depicting, performing, you have liberty. And that is why even today, Yakshagana is a popular theater. And another aspect of the continuation of this art, which is a blend of folk and classical qualities, is that it is continued by the educated people and new experiments are done. New experiments are done. Language is one of the main aspects of Yakshagana because the song is in the local language, that is Kannada language, and the dialogue, which is an integral part, the conversation among the characters, which is an integral part of Yakshagana, is in the local language. People understand. But when people go outside that language region, when you perform Yakshagana in front of the people who don't know Kannada, then how to communicate? Dr. Shivaram Karant, the first scholar who did research on Yakshagana, he thought of eliminating dialogues and instead he stressed more on the gestures of the body. So he made it Yakshagana ballet. Yeah. He actually made it an experimental Yakshagana ballet and in which there are no dialogues. Sometimes, you know, before the English audience who don't know Kannada, so the educated actors used Yakshagana, they did Yakshagana, and when they have to speak in Kannada language, local language, instead they use English. They did not change any other traditional aspect of Yakshagana except the dialogue part. So the language that is used by the characters was understood by the audience, and thus people can understand what they're saying, and the story is also understood. Apart from that, mono acting, solo performances, and orchestra of Yakshagana is separated, and that itself has become a performance now. And just the dance element of Yakshagana is also taken separately, and that is also presented. So new experiments are being done in this theater. That way, Yakshagana, which has the features, main features of Natya Shastra, it's a most important document on dramaturgy. Is audience interaction. So I know I'm very brief now, and there are a few handicaps, excuse me. Now, I've given a very brief introduction. After hearing my words, if anybody has anything curious to know about more about Yakshagana, you may please ask me.
All right, so if anyone has any questions, then please ask.
Yes,
Yeah, Mr. Samaga, so I've opened the floor for questions. So I would just comment on the northern style of dance that you showed, and the mask that you showed some photos of the masks. A few of the masks actually looked like Bian Lian, the Chinese mask dance form. And that is one thing, that there is so much of borrowing from other cultures because of internet, and it is so clearly visible there.
Yeah, let me make one point very clear. In Yakshagana, these characters don't wear mask. It's a paint on the face only. But the paint almost acts as a mask, I know. But even then, there is more importance given to the facial expression in the northern style of Yakshagana, whereas in the southern style of Yakshagana, you have more lines, more colors on the face, and it's not mask. Yeah, but there are similarities. No, in India only, in Kerala, you have Kathakali, a form of theater.
I understand. My question was different. I'm saying that it is what I can see, it's taking off Chinese cultural appropriation of Chinese cultural things into Indian dance form. That was my question.
No. But anyway, the costumes and the colorful makeup, of Yakshagana is the influence of local other forms only, but not any other influence.
All right. Thanks. Any other question? If not, then I'll ask one more thing. One of the best things about folk is it's a kind of it's an expression of local people, local community. But when you stress too much on educated people and educated thing, and they bring new things, I find it difficult. As a folk practitioner myself, I really enjoy the practices that is being done by people who bring their own kind of understanding through the borrowed oral culture and that tradition. And I feel that stressing on too much of education in the folklore performances, I think it just, for me, it's probably, I wouldn't say that someone will understand a culture better because they are educated, and an uneducated person won't understand the story because it's all coming from the oral traditions. It's been written just now. So
can I answer? Yeah. I fully agree with you. Even some folk experts in our place also don't like Yakshagana being more and more refined. But the folk life itself is in India, in this part, is also changing. The folk practices are also adjusting to the modern life, modern equipments, modern available things. And since the life is also slowly changing and the people are becoming more and more educated, Yakshagana, the coastal Karnataka Yakshagana is also slowly changing, but the basic structure, basic intention, basic form is not altered. It is refined, that's all. However, every day between November and May, these months, every day more than 20 troops perform Yakshagana in coastal Karnataka every day as a form of worship, as a form of seva to God. So it is a popular, dynamic theater.
All right.
Folk elements are brought. For example, in the drama part of Yakshagana, I don't mean the dance, I don't mean the music, but in the other two aspects, dialogues and the drama part there, all sorts of contemporary things which you find in folk liberty. So folk quality is still retained, but at the same time, since educated people, the so-called cultured people are there in Yakshagana, so it is getting a more refined form.
Yeah, and my problem is with those cultured people. They just alter the culture of folk. That's a kind of a problem that we see, because that also brings in the aspect of Brahmanization of folk forms, which is a bigger problem, unfortunately. And it can go on, our discussion can continue, but we have got another international presenter now, so I'll go on to her. Our next person to come in today is Ms. Paola Balbi. She is a professional storyteller and artistic director of ISF Rome, Italy. She is a graduated actress with a BA in Performing Arts from National Academy of Dramatic Arts Silvio de Amico in Rome, and a worldwide renowned professional performing storyteller and artistic director of storytelling events and festivals. She lives between Dubai and Rome and often on tour around the world with her shows. After her acting degree in Italy, she specialized in Shakespeare acting in UK and worked extensively in Italy and UK in theater, as well as TV and cinema for many years. She has been a pioneer of the storytelling revival in Italy, where she founded Raccontaminium Storia, sorry, I can't pronounce it properly, storytelling company in 2004. Now that has become the most established storytelling company in Italy and one of the most appreciated in Europe. Over to you, Paola.
Thank you. Good day, everyone. So as a start, once upon a time, there was a young storyteller. He was following his master and he had a plan. He did not only want to become a good storyteller, he wanted to become the best storyteller ever. So this young lad, after a while, he went to his master and he asked, "Master, I followed you many years. Can you now tell me what is the secret of the best storyteller?" Now the elder storyteller, he looked at him and he said, "I can teach you everything I know. And if you keep following me, you will be a great storyteller. But the secret of the best storyteller, I don't know. If you want to know it, you need to travel. You need to go over the sea and up on a mountain and down the valley and across the river. And then you shall travel through a big plain. And after that, you will see a hill. On top of the hill, there is a small hut. And there lives a very, very old hermit. He knows the secret of the best storyteller." "Very well," said the young storyteller, "I shall go and find it out, because you see, I will be the best storyteller." And so the young storyteller, he went on top of his horse and he started galloping. And he galloped, he galloped, he galloped, he galloped. And then he took the boat and he went across the sea. And then he took another horse and he went on top of the mountain and then down in the valley. And then he galloped and galloped and galloped and he crossed the river. And then he galloped and galloped and galloped across the plain until he saw the hill. "Oh, it's just like my master said," he thought. And then he went on top of the hill, and when he reached the top of the hill, there was indeed a small hut. And he went off his horse, he walked towards the little hut, and he knocked at the door. And the door opened, and there was a very, very old man with a long white beard, dressed in rags, very skinny like the spiritual hermits are. And the young storyteller said, "My lord, I've been crossing half of the world only to see you and ask you one question." "How can I help you?" replied the very old man. "What is the secret of the best storyteller?" "Oh, the secret of the best storyteller? I know it, my dear. You've come from so far just for this small question? I will tell you straight away. Really? Yes. That's it. Oh, thank you, replied the young storyteller. And he thanked the elderly man, and back he went to his country. And across the plain, across the river, on top of the mountain, and through the woods, and across the sea, he went back to the master storyteller. When the master storyteller saw his pupil coming towards him, he waved to him, because you see, old masters are always happy to see their students coming back. And he said, so, did you find out the secret of the best storyteller? Oh, yes, master. And what is it? And what is it as I lived and told stories all my life without knowing it? Oh, sir, the secret of the best storyteller is when you remember the story and not the storyteller. So this is a short traditional story about storytelling. Storytelling has been recognized by UNESCO as traditional heritage of the humankind, where for storytelling we mean the traditional performing art of telling orally without knowing them by heart, but with oratory skills of improvisation, all that material that belongs to all countries of the world in different shapes, made of myth, legends, folk tales, wonder tales, and also stories from the collective memory of communities. Once upon a time, the storyteller was a respected member of the community all over the world. There were societies that did not use the will, for example, in ancient times, and there were cultures that did not use writing, cultures that did not use horses, but there is no culture that didn't use storytelling as first and most traditional performing art form. Now, what happened to storytelling is that it went on as a chain uninterrupted from master to young storyteller, and spreading also in the community in a social way. So people used to gather in the evenings around the fire in some places, or in the hay storage in other places, on top of the roof in other places, around the tree, for example, and used to tell each other stories. Not a conversation, but stories. Stories with once upon a time, beginning, development, and end, to share their own experiences, to share their own beliefs. When most people were illiterate, even the sacred stories and sacred texts from all over the world were passed on orally with the work of the storytellers. Then when the television monster came to our houses, this is when the storytelling in less than 10 years was cut off and died in most places of the world. The only places where the traditional storytelling still lives is where there's no television, where people are illiterate and keep telling their own stories one to the other. And this happens in some rural places all over the place, very isolated and remote villages. And this is where the people who started the new storytelling, the storytelling revival, went to study. So this is a little bit the opposite than the speaker before me said. People who are educated went to learn from the people who we might consider not educated how to tell traditional stories. As there is one element that we sometimes forget, the more we study on books, and even the more we research on internet, the more we lose our memory ability. The more people are literate, the more they are unable to remember things that have been passed on to them orally. So the storytellers from the 70s recognized that this is a loss. And they started studying again how to learn orally, how to do without paper, how to do without screens, and how to pass a story once more from eyes to eyes, from mouth to ears, from heart to heart, because this is what traditional oral storytelling is about. Now there is one detail that needs to be understood for us contemporary storytellers and contemporary audiences. We're not in the past, we need to make a storytelling an art form for the contemporary audience. How? People now do not gather anymore spontaneously around the fire. People do not live anymore mostly as a community. Everyone is in their own house with their own family, which didn't happen once upon a time when everyone lived. I mean, the family was the village. Now that we live in our small families, small or big, but still closed somehow, we need to go to a place that is once more sacred. We need to create a sacred place once more to tell stories. And this place can be a theater, or it can be a square, or it can be a garden, but a place where we invite people to come and listen to stories. And who tells stories now for a contemporary audience? Who is able to attract people who spend their time on internet? Who can attract people of all kinds of backgrounds? So from illiterate to people to 2 degrees, what can bring together all these people? Storytelling, when done by a skillful master storyteller. So everyone can tell a story, and storytelling has always been a social activity since very old times. But not everyone is a storyteller. Because even in our traditional communities, the storyteller of the village was only one person, or sometimes 2 people, 1 man and 1 female. So although everyone told stories and belonged to an oral tradition, the real folk tradition teaches us that the storyteller is a specific person with a specific training. And this is what the storytelling revival is about. To revive not only the material, so myth, legends, folk tales, wonder tales, and collective memory, but also to raise a new generation of professional storytellers that can be like the old storytellers of the community, people whose aim in life is to tell story. So I belong to the Federation of European Storytelling, and I am the responsible for the training of young storytellers and emerging talents who want to become professional storytellers. As I said, everyone can tell a story, but not everyone is a storyteller. There is a reason why storytelling died out, traditional storytelling. And although we don't like this, we have to accept it. And once we accept it, we are in the position to reignite the fire again. So in order to face a contemporary audience, the modern storyteller needs to be very skillful, needs to be an alluring alternative to a screen. This means that we need to learn to use our voice, to use our body, to use our gaze to engage the audience in a professional, skillful manner. So to the question, how did they do in the old times? Oh, in the old times, they learned. In the Native American communities, in order to become a traditional storyteller, the young storyteller had to follow his or her master for 30 years before he or she was allowed to tell her first story. So this means that study was there already. The idea that in order to be entitled to tell a traditional story, you needed to follow a long path has always been there. Now, how do people study? Storytelling is still mostly a traditional art. So in order to learn, you follow one or better more master storytellers, experienced storytellers, people who dedicate their lives to the storytelling art. Because yes, this is the good news. It is possible to make a living out of storytelling in the contemporary world. But it is possible only for a very few people who really are able to attract big audiences and to face and to relate with people like in the old times. And in order to do this, there is training. So usually storytellers, at least in Europe and North America, they follow workshops with master storytellers. Between each workshop, that might be, for example, 20 intensive hours or 20, 30 hours spread across several weeks. They practice what we call practice and study for 6 months, 1 year. So they try each and every opportunity to tell stories with their communities, with their extended families, sometimes in schools, in churches, in religious festivities, but just in an informal way. And they try to apply what they learned in the workshops. After 6 months, 1 year, depending on the practice, they take a second workshop, what we call an advanced storytelling workshop. And then they keep practicing. And then they attend a professional development workshop, maybe with international storytellers. They attend storytelling festivals. There are international storytelling festivals all over the countries in Europe that only feature professional storytellers. And this is the place where the emerging talents go to learn the art. So after following this path, usually the emerging storyteller joins a storytelling group. There are storytelling organizations all over Europe, in Asia, in America, and in Africa. And there is one in Australia as well, as I know of. And I think Mrs. Jackie Caring is responsible, but I can check for you if you're interested. And so this organization provides recognized training to give the contemporary storytellers the skill to face the audience. So somehow this is the story of the International Storytelling Revival. You can find a lot on internet about it by typing International Storytelling Revival or FEST, Federation for European Storytelling. And I think recognition, last idea that I want to throw you, it's very important. Storytelling, contemporary storytelling needs recognition from the Class A show business, never to be forgotten again. But storytellers do not need to betray their art form to get the recognition. So the storytelling movement fights to get a recognition for storytelling as a traditional art form, but with contemporary artists who are very skillful. This means we do not want to be called theater. We do not want to go into other sectors, like, for example, other, when we ask for grants and funding. We want storytelling with a capital S to be recognized as a contemporary art form.
Great. Thanks, Paula. That was very interesting. Any questions to Paula? Satyabodh has a question. Yes, Satya. Unmute yourself, please.
I just wanted to know, is it the performing art? Story can be anything, but it is art of storytelling. Is it what something she's talking about, or is it that it carries certain stories that will be passed on to the next generation? Because when it comes to
go please.
Yeah. Example, in India, when I look at it, example, maybe as a performance, some may not have continued because there were no any interesting elements in them. But because of religious reasons or because of the ceremonial reasons, many stories have been continued. And as example, there was a question earlier as well. Maybe they are talking about the same subject and the stories, but the new things also have been added. But the generation to generation, the ceremonial things are happening. That is why the performance is continuing. The persons who are talking about the stories are not just telling the stories as a performance. They are telling the stories because they are ceremonial. That's what I wanted to ask. The storytelling part, is it that they can take any story as a performance, or does it, or is it something that is it ceremonial stories that come into the storytelling as well?
I mean, both are part of the storytelling family, because the storytelling tradition developed in different manners all over the countries. Now, one interesting point that you raised is, yes, at the origin, all storytelling was a sacred storytelling. This is a fact. All our stories, even our folk tales, derive initially from our sacred stories all over. I mean, from biblical stories, from Mahabharata stories, from Quran stories. Yes, this is the truth. But and then there are stories who took from them and got out of the sacred places and were told in the streets, in the gatherings. So they both are part of the storytelling movement. Now, what does the contemporary storyteller do? They take any story they want to pass on. Okay, all stories, a modern storyteller usually takes from his or her own traditional heritage. If the stories belong to a sacred tradition, okay, the rule is this: respect for the story. So no professional storyteller would ever take a story from a sacred tradition without honoring it, without respecting it. Okay, so this, it's not allowed to change a story, the content of a sacred story. But the storyteller delivers it not with a religious intent, but with a cultural spreading intent. Okay, so for example, in Dubai, I collaborate very tightly with an Indian classical dancer and storyteller. So she was an Indian classical dancer, and she came to train with storytelling because she was aware that in her dance, there was basically the whole Indian mythology contained in the Indian classical dancing. So at one point she said, I want to learn to speak this mythology as well as dancing it. So I trained her as a storyteller in the first place, and then she came back to India and she watched the traditional storytellers there. And then she put them all together in her own unique style. Her name is Shireen Saif, and you can see some of her performances also on Facebook. Kamini Ramachandran, for example, Indian, and she's the artistic director of the Singapore Storytelling Festival. She goes to, every year she travels to Indian rural communities and she speaks extensively with the elders. She speaks many languages of India, and she listen and listen and listen and then talk about the stories, and she collects the stories and she teaches to young people to deliver those stories with modern performing standard. Okay, so this is what we're trying to do.
It's wonderful to know about. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Over
you.
to you, Shubha, now.
Absolutely, very, very interesting. I think on one hand, we can relate to Harikatha from some certain states of India to storytelling narratives. And on the other hand, we have Yellamma's stories being narrated by a contemporary artist called Shilpa Murthy. I think these are things that make things very, very interesting for us in the contemporary times. Thank you so much for that beautiful presentation. We are moving towards the end, almost the end of this session. I request Professor Sean Redmond, leader of Asian Media and Cultural Studies Network, for his closing remarks.
In Wong Kar-wai's Happy Together, Popo Wing and Lei Fai travel to Argentina to visit the Iguazu Falls. This international road journey is an attempt to mend their broken relationship. They never get to the falls, at least not together. Happy Together is about many things. It has been read as an allegory of the handover of Hong Kong to the Chinese, of transnational cultural flows, of the exhaustion at the heart of late liquid capitalism, and of what love and connectivity may mean to two different people on two different roads. Wong Kar-wai and Christopher Doyle, his director of photography, managed to film Buenos Aires as if they are still in Chongqing mansions in Hong Kong, as if their own ghostly cityscape follows them to Buenos Aires. For me, the tango dance acts as a metronome, the beat throughout Happy Together, capturing the duality and the dialectic of the film. It shows us the most intimate and measured of movement, and yet reeks of melancholy and loneliness. The film then uses tango to speak to the handover, to transnational cultural flows, to the dancing cadaver of capitalism, to the wetted breath of love, because this is what dance can do. I very much enjoyed the papers tonight and the wonderful way this conference, this festival has emerged. It is transnational, and our cultural flows shows what connects and binds us. Vikrant and Shubha has connected and bound us together in this wonderful festival. And I'd again like to express my deep thanks for hosting, directing, and shaping this wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So Etienne, today he joins us. He's an academic and he's based in Ghana in France. And his topic today is traditional music and revivalism in Southern France and the Festival of Ghana. And he's a graduate of Catholic University of Lyon, France, in modern letters. He gradually turned to the human sciences and particularly in anthropology by focusing on the origin of language, the philosophy of language and performativity, then to endangered languages and linguistics. He has a master's degree in linguistics anthropology from the University of Montreal, Canada. He is involved in various cultural preservation work and is part of the Association National Cultures du Monde, Ghana, France. And he has been a collaborator for a couple of conferences with me. And welcome, Etienne. And sorry for that last minute change. Over to you.
No, it's me. I'm so sorry. And I was so confused with the timetable, but it's all right. I'm coming. Thank you, Vikrant, and thank you to invite me to this event. Thank you to organize all these events, which are very interesting. And so with the Festival of Ghana, we try to promote as well at this folklore life and cultural story. So it's a pleasure to talk about it. I wanted to talk more about the traditional music and revivalism in southern France, which is about what we're doing in Ghana, in Auvergne. Donc, Auvergne is a region of southern France, and we had a great history around folklore, which is very difficult, as you maybe know, in France to say folklore. Folklore is it is a concept that emerged in the 19th century, at the end of 19th century. And in France, a lot of people, a lot of universitaries and a lot of people wanted to work on this notion of folklore and wanted to go in the countryside and to collect tales, to collect the language, to collect everything. As you know, in France, there are a lot of different dialects. There's not only French, and a lot of language as well. And in Auvergne, it's a language named Occitan. And that language has a lot of tales, and so it was interesting to know. It was interesting to go in the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, to go in the countryside and to collect tales. So, so there was this tradition. But folklore at the beginning of the 20th century in France was linked to the right wing, the extreme right wing, far right wing, sorry. So so it was, there's a story to say in France, when you say I'm working with folklore, I'm working to promote folklore, it's often considered as something from far right wing. So we talk a lot, we talk maybe more now after the Second World War about traditional revivalism. So revivalism was about music first time, and then about culture and cultural life, especially as we do. So in Ghana, we work a lot about ICH and promoting the ICH, and we have all this tradition to promote this traditional cultural life. So it's a way, in France, it's always a way to promote ICH, and it's always a politic to promote ICH. And it's always something very difficult, as the French policy don't consider the linguistic and the cultural diversity of the southern part and of the region, which are not, for example, the Basque Country and the Corsica. So there is some difficulty with the policy. And maybe I can show you a bit the traditional movements. May I share the screen? It's all right?
Yeah, please go ahead. You have the share screen button there.
Okay. Could you see? Could you see it? It's all right?
Yes.
All so maybe I could make some video. So here is a video from the first. We often say that in the revivalism there are three races. So the first would be after the Second World War, and was about poetry and making the poetry was already done in French to make a tradition, to make something in the language. Donc, I will talk about it just after. So this is a song from Claudie Marty, was a singer, who was a singer in the 70s, and sung some French songs were in Occitan. And the second one, something more modern. Here we are. So we could see some different waves of this revivalism, and which is now just beginning a bit different with the modern wave. So we can, here's yeah. So there is all of a tradition of polyphony, which is from the Middle Ages, and which is becoming more modern as well, and which is just shared in a modern style, and maybe of the Festival of Ghana also would share it. So we could hear it. So around this revivalism, there are some problems, as we as we could see, that often the language, which is the dynamic around the language, is not often the dynamic of the language which is spoken in the countryside, as we could think, because in the countryside, so the language is spoken, and in the performances, it's another language. So there are some, as we say, disruptors between the artist musicians and the other side, which is the university, finally, which is teaching the language. And the most, for me, where is the problem, is the locals are always absent from the language discourse. So they don't have, they couldn't, in fact, they couldn't make propositions, they couldn't make proposals to think the language and to think this revivalism. So there are some disjunctions between the natural speakers, which are in the natural, in the readers community, and the artist, and the other side, which is the university and the teachers of the language. So this is that problem. And as we could see at the festival, for example, this distinction between the performance, which is not the reality, and what is doing in the real life. And always the people who are dancing, the people who are teaching the language, with the people who are making music, traditional music, are not the ones who practice it. So it's a big problem for me in this region. So I will say there are some laps. So this is the identity representation of authenticity and the notion of cultural heritage and identity. So there is a problem, and this is a disruption. It is the intentionality and the identity constructions. And this is, I think, the performative fields of Occitan expression. We can find it every time. And maybe it's a subject so that you can find as well in other Latin cultures and in Europe as well. That's it. What I can say about that. I don't know if that was clear. Maybe if you have questions.
All right. Thanks, Etienne. And questions? Any questions to Etienne? I think the time is running out for questions also.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, yep, so we had almost wrapped up the session, and Shreeraj was there sharing the thank you note where he was stopped in the middle. So Shreeraj, you can do your thank you note. Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Unmute yourself, Shreeraj.
Yeah. Am I audible now? Okay, thank you. This is my honor and privilege to present the vote of thanks for the third session of MAHE Deakin JANAPADA, a virtual international collaboration of folklore and art. First, I would like to place my sincere thanks to the leadership of both the universities, the Deakin University, as well as the Manipal Academy of Higher Education, for providing us a chance to host such a platform or create such a platform at the international level. I also would like to extend my gratitude and thanks to our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Lieutenant General M.D. Venkatesh, for his message on this third day of MAHE Deakin JANAPADA. I would like to extend thanks to Nick Leonard of Munich University for the keynote address today. I would like to place my sincere thanks to all the international presenters of the day, Adel Bollard, Ala Makira, and Paula Balabi and Etienne for their present and also their the exchange of their views. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Guru Sanjeeva Suvarna and Dr. M.L. Samaga for the presentation on the Indian performance Yakshagana. I would also like to thank Shishira Sanjeeva Suvarna, Madhusudan Aluraya, and Kaveri Kannada Sangha of United States of America, Chandrasekhar of Dharmasala, for their contribution in preparing the presentation on Yakshagana. I would like to thank Sian Redmond for the present and his remarks on the matter, and also would like to thank you, sir, for your cooperation throughout this, creating this platform. Similarly, I would like to thank the Director, Manipal Institute of Communication, Dr. Padmarani, who has been an inspiration for creating this event on this day. I also would like to thank my colleague, Mr. Mohan Pai, in creating the Yakshagana presentation on this day. I also would like to thank all our partners and our social media team for giving promotions and being part of this team. I would like to extend my, it's the last but not the least, thanks to Dr. Vikrant and Dr. Shubha for leading this particular event on these, third day. And definitely we are moving to the fourth day next week with some more additions to that. Before we end, I would like to say, I would like to end my vote of thanks with the ancient Indian word, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid, Dukkha Bhag Bhave. There should not be any, all human beings, all living beings, not only human beings, all living beings be happy and there be prosperous throughout the world. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Shreeraj. You thank everyone every day, but you're never thanked. So thank you very much.